I gripped the steering wheel and squinted down the two-lane highway cutting through the Wyoming plains. The late afternoon sun hung low, stretching my Subaru Outback's shadow across the asphalt. I was somewhere south of nowhere, running on bad gas station coffee and a heavy heart. A blur of motion on the shoulder up ahead caught my eye. Oh no. An SUV was flipped on its roof in the ditch, wheels still spinning, dust and smoke curling into the sky. I slammed on the brakes. Oh hell! Gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled onto the shoulder and jumped out. The air reeked of burnt rubber and gasoline. I sprinted toward the overturned Ford Explorer, heart pounding. One of its windows was blown out, and I could hear a faint, panicked voice from inside. "Call 911!" I shouted to no one in particular. A couple of other cars had stopped behind me, and a woman fumbled with her phone, eyes wide. "I already did," she yelled back. I dropped to my knees by the broken driver's side window. Shattered glass bit into my palms. Inside, a woman hung upside down from her seatbelt, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. She was conscious, moaning in pain. From the back of the SUV came a muffled whimper. Twisted in her car seat, a little girl, maybe 4 years old, was strapped in sideways, eyes closed, face deathly pale. My heart clenched. "Focus, Daniel." I yanked the driver's door, which was crumpled and jammed. With a grunt, I managed to wrench it open. The driver, a brunette in her 30s, locked eyes with me, upside-down terror. "My daughter, please," she gasped, tears mixing with the blood on her face. "I'm a doctor." "I'm here to help," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "Try not to move, okay? Help is coming." She nodded shakily, choking back a sob. Crawling half into the overturned SUV, I maneuvered into the back. The child's car seat had partially dislodged and was hanging by a seatbelt. The girl's head lolled at an unnatural angle. She wasn't breathing. I felt a jolt of fear. 2 fingers on her neck, faint pulse. Thank God her heart was still beating, but her airway was blocked. I saw vomit around her lips. Carefully, I tilted her head and swept my finger through her mouth, clearing her throat. Then I pinched her tiny nose, sealed my mouth over hers, and gave 2 quick rescue breaths. Her chest rose. Good. No response, though. "Come on, sweetheart," I urged, adrenaline roaring in my ears. I started compressions, 2 fingers pressing against her sternum in quick, gentle pumps. "Please, please." On the second cycle of breaths, the little girl spasmed and let out a weak cough, then a wail. Music to my ears. "She's breathing," I shouted over my shoulder to the driver. The mother let out a sob of relief, still hanging upside down. "Your daughter's breathing. She's okay," I reassured her. A siren wailed in the distance. Help was coming, but the driver was still trapped. I clambered back to the front. The seatbelt was holding her at a cruel angle, arm pinned. Probably a broken arm, possibly other injuries, and that head laceration was bleeding freely. "I'm going to get you down," I said. I saw a flash of fear in her eyes. "I'll be gentle, I promise." Using my pocket knife, I sliced through the seatbelt while bracing her shoulders. She slid down with a cry. I eased her onto the roof, now the floor, careful to support her neck. Blood from the cut on her forehead ran into her hair. I shrugged out of my flannel shirt, wadded it up, and pressed it to her wound. "Hold this here," I instructed. She clamped a trembling hand over it. Just then, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Sheriff's Department. Anybody still in the vehicle?" A tall figure in a tan deputy's uniform jumped down into the ditch. I recognized the auburn hair in a tight braid, the same deputy who'd blown past me on the highway earlier. She must have circled back when dispatch reported the crash. "I've got 2 here," I called. "Adult female driver, probable broken arm and head laceration. Little girl, about 4, was unconscious but breathing now." Deputy Samantha Parker nodded briskly and spoke into her radio, confirming our location and injuries. Then she crouched beside me, hazel eyes full of focus. "Ambulance is 2 minutes out," she said. "Anything I can do?" "Help me keep her still," I said, jerking my chin at the driver. We both knelt by the injured mother. The deputy, Sam, took over holding the makeshift bandage on the woman's forehead while I checked her arm. A nasty break, judging by the angle, but at least no open fracture. Before long, red and blue lights strobed across the dusky sky. Paramedics swarmed in. Together, we carefully extricated the driver using a backboard. They whisked mother and daughter off to the waiting ambulances. The woman, her name was Diane, I later learned, grabbed my hand weakly as they loaded her in. "Thank you," she whispered, eyes full of tears and gratitude. I just squeezed her hand and nodded. Words failed me, but my chest swelled with emotion as I watched the ambulance pull away, siren fading. I stood there on the roadside, trembling from the adrenaline come down. My hands were slick with someone else's blood, but all I felt was relief. They were alive. Both of them. You likely just saved 2 lives, Deputy Parker said softly beside me. In the commotion, I hadn't noticed she was still there, one hand on my shoulder to steady me. I blew out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Right place, right time, I managed, trying to play it off even as my heart continued to hammer. Her lips quirked in a wry smile. That and some serious skill. You okay, Doc? I nodded, rolling my shoulders to release the tension. I will be. Only then did it hit me how close I'd come to a very different outcome. A few more minutes without air and that little girl, I shook the thought off. Sam, she'd introduced herself by first name now, helped me up the embankment. Come on, there's a diner in town. You need to sit, get some water, maybe wash off. She eyed my bloodied arms. I realized I must look like a mess. No shoes. I'd kicked them off to crawl in the car. Shirtless. The shirt was ruined with blood, and hands shaking slightly. Maybe I could use that water, I admitted with a weak chuckle. Her police cruiser was nearby, lights still blinking. Follow me, she said warmly. Timber Falls isn't far. I glanced back at the wreck one last time, now swarmed by highway patrol and a tow truck. A scene of chaos, but no tragedy today. Not on my watch. I climbed into my Subaru, wiping a sticky smear of cotton candy pink vomit off my chin, and pulled in behind Sam's cruiser as she led me toward town. Less than an hour ago, I'd been a man aimlessly driving away from his old life. Now, I'd stumbled headlong into someone else's crisis and made a difference. The irony wasn't lost on me. As I followed the deputy's flashing lights down a dusty road toward an unknown town, I felt a tiny spark inside, a flicker of purpose I thought I'd lost. Maybe fate had plans for Dr. Daniel Carter after all. And if those plans happened to start in a place as random as Timber Falls, who was I to argue? 1 month earlier, the betrayal. I never imagined my world would end in a brightly lit hospital delivery room, but that's exactly where it happened. Just one more push, Rachel, almost there, the obstetrician encouraged. My wife, Rachel, crushed my hand in a vice-like grip. I perched on a stool at her bedside, sweating and smiling like any anxious first-time dad-to-be. My free hand hovered, ready with scissors to cut our baby's umbilical cord. We had been waiting for this moment for months. Well, I had anyway. The baby slid out in a rush of motion and squalling sound. It's a girl, the doctor announced, lifting the newborn for us to see. I was prepared for tears of joy, maybe a profound surge of love. Instead, I got a punch to the gut. The baby in the doctor's arms had a head full of dark curls and skin several shades darker than either mine or my wife's. I froze, scissors still in one hand, Rachel's clammy hand in my other. My brain tried to reject what my eyes plainly saw. This can't be right. The obstetrician's eyes flicked to me, wide and questioning. The nurses exchanged looks. The only person not looking at me was Rachel. She turned her face away, suddenly fascinated by the ceiling tiles. Her own grip on my hand went slack. I stared at her, newborn daughter and felt the room tilt. It was as if gravity itself had betrayed me. The doctor cleared her throat, breaking the stunned silence. Gently, she took the scissors from my limp fingers and cut the cord herself. A nurse hurried the baby to a warmer for suction and swaddling. My chest constricted, air refusing to come. What? I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. I looked at Rachel, my voice barely a whisper. How? Rachel wouldn't meet my gaze. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes, but she stayed silent, lips pressed thin. A hot wave of nausea rolled through me. I staggered back a step from the bed, letting go of her hand. The truth was written in our daughter's caramel complexion and shock of dark hair. I'm white. Rachel's white. This child was not mine. A mistake, she'd later call it. But cheating isn't a mistake. It's a series of deliberate choices. And getting pregnant by another man? That's not something you brush off with an oops. Pain, betrayal, disbelief, all warred within me. I thought of the past months, painting the nursery yellow together, attending birthing classes, Rachel laughing as I assembled the crib. Had it all been a lie? How could I have been so blind? I will never forget the look on the delivery doctor's face. Sympathy mixed with discomfort. Even she knew this was beyond awkward. The labor nurses suddenly became very interested in their equipment, tension thick as gel in the air. Rachel finally turned to glance at me. Her eyes brimmed with tears. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out except a weak croak. I found my voice instead. "Whose is it?" I asked quietly, dangerously calm. Rachel just cried softly, unable to muster a denial, let alone an explanation. That told me everything. I closed my eyes, a strange clarity settling over me. The moment the baby had entered the world, my marriage had effectively ended. There was no coming back from this. I didn't trust myself to say anything more. I feared I'd either start screaming or break down completely. So I did the only thing I could. I walked out. I left the delivery room in a daze, numb to the nurse's concerned stares and the muffled sound of my wife sobbing. I walked right out of the maternity ward and kept going until I found myself standing in the hospital parking lot. Then I bent over and vomited onto the pavement. A security guard approached, asking if I was all right. I wiped my mouth and mumbled something about feeling ill. He offered to get help, but I waved him off and stumbled to my car. I sat behind the wheel, hands trembling, and stared blankly through the windshield. What do you even do in that situation? My mind reeled. Scream, cry, go back in and demand answers? Two things were crystal clear. First, the baby was not mine. Second, Rachel had been unfaithful, likely for a long time, given she'd carried this other man's child to term under my oblivious nose. Rage began to simmer beneath the shock. I thought of every late night at the hospital where I'd been too exhausted to talk over dinner, every time she'd said she understood my career was demanding. Did she? Or had she been seeking comfort elsewhere all along? Before anyone calls me heartless for walking out on a newborn, I muttered aloud to the empty car, know this, the baby was just the messenger. The real crime was committed by her mother. I pounded the steering wheel once hard, the horn honking sharply. How could she do this to me? To us? We'd been married 4 years. We had a life. I thought a happy one. Sure, I worked a lot, but it was for our future. We had plans, travel, eventually, a family. Apparently, she decided to start that family without me. A rap on my window startled me. It was the security guard again. I realized I was crying, hot, furious tears. I never cry, but there I was, shattered. "You sure you don't need a doctor, sir?" the guard asked, peering in with concern. I let out a bitter laugh. I am a doctor. And there was nothing I could prescribe for this. After a few deep breaths, I re-entered the hospital, but not to see Rachel. I found my way to the birth records office down the hall. The clerk there looked surprised to see a disheveled new father without a baby. "I won't be signing the birth certificate," I informed her flatly. "The father's name should be listed as unknown." The clerk opened her mouth, then wisely closed it at whatever she saw in my expression. She nodded and made the change. Legally, at least, I refused to be on the hook for this child of infidelity. By the next day, I had not returned to Rachel's side. I ignored her frantic texts and calls. They ranged from apologetic to accusatory to plaintive. I read none of them beyond preview. I did pick up once when my mother-in-law rang, probably thinking I'd want an apology from them too. She gently said, "It was a mistake, Daniel. Can't you forgive her? The baby needs a father." I swallowed my volcanic response and simply asked, "Can you?" Silence hung heavy over the line. Finally, a choked "I'm sorry" from her mother, and the call ended. I think even her parents, who had been like a second family to me, struggled to condone their daughter's actions. I never spoke to Rachel or her family again after that, not once. I left the hospital that morning with one last piece of business, ensuring the hospital staff knew the man listed as husband was not to be put on that birth certificate or any documents as father. The hospital counselor tried to talk to me. "These situations are difficult. Perhaps you'd like to speak with someone." I suppose they thought I might do something crazy, but I was ice calm and numb by then. I went home to our empty house, a modest 2-bedroom we rented in Chicago, and methodically packed a suitcase. Then, another. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Every corner of that place held reminders of a life built on lies. Into the suitcases went clothes, my laptop, a few framed photos of my family. None of her, none of us together. I left those behind on purpose. Important documents, my grandmother's watch, some personal mementos. I traveled light. Apparently, I'd married heavy. On the kitchen table, I set down my gold wedding band. It clinked against the wood, a tiny sound that echoed like a verdict. I didn't leave a note. What was there to say? The truth had been laid out plainly on that delivery table. Instead, I left a copy of the hospital paternity waiver form, with my signature and father unknown highlighted. Let that speak for itself. And then I walked out the door without a backward glance. That night, I checked into a cheap hotel near the hospital where I worked. My phone buzzed incessantly. Rachel again, alternating between apologetic texts, "Please, we can work this out," and angry ones. "I made one mistake, don't throw us away." I turned the damn thing off. The next morning, I called in to arrange a leave of absence. Burnout, I told them. They understood. Surgeons often take a sabbatical after residency, though usually not so abruptly. My colleague Jim, who was also a lawyer, long story, became my lifeline. When I told him the broad strokes, he uttered a slew of choice expletives on my behalf. Then he calmly agreed to handle the divorce. Irreconcilable differences would suffice on the paperwork. No need to smear Rachel's name with adultery if she didn't contest anything. And if she did, well, then we'd bring out the big guns. He'd make sure I walked away clean. No alimony, obviously no child support, and minimal interaction. I thanked him, voice hollow with exhaustion. By that afternoon, I was on the interstate heading west in my old Subaru Outback. 2 suitcases in the back and absolutely no plan beyond putting as many miles between myself and Chicago as possible. I felt like a ghost. Drained, directionless, barely there. I'd drive for hours in silence, then realize the fuel gauge was low or that night had fallen. Eventually, I thought of an old friend, Dave, who'd gone through something similar. He'd caught his wife cheating a couple years back. Dave found his peace by leaving, literally backpacking through Europe until he found himself, as he put it. He eventually met a lovely German woman and remarried. Landed on his feet, he said. Maybe I'd find myself too, somewhere far from the stench of betrayal. So I kept driving. Days blurred. I traded city skylines for wide-open plains and rolling mountains. I slept in roadside motels when I remembered to stop. Anger and hurt tagged along in the passenger seat like unwelcome companions. It was about a month later, on a quiet Wyoming highway, that fate, or dumb luck, intervened, in the form of a terrible accident and a brave little girl who needed help. In saving her life, I might have saved my own. I didn't know it that day, but the road was leading me exactly where I needed to be. Back to the present. Timber Falls. So then he just rode with me to town and got a room here for the night, Deputy Parker was saying. I blinked, realizing I'd been staring blankly into a mug of coffee at the Timber Falls diner. It was the morning after the accident, and the adrenaline crash had hit me hard. True to her word, Sam had ensured I got cleaned up and fed. She'd practically marched me to the motel herself last night. "Becky's got a room for you, don't argue," she'd insisted. Now here we were at the local diner for breakfast, and I had apparently zoned out reliving yesterday's events while she chatted with the motel owner. Becky, the owner of Timber Falls Inn, was a kindly woman in her 60s with a perpetual rosy-cheeked smile. She topped off my coffee. "Welcome to Timber Falls, Dr. Carter. How are you feeling this morning?" I managed a faint smile. "I'm all right, thank you." It was easier to say than to explain the cauldron of emotions roiling under the surface. Saving those people had given me a high like none other, and a crash to match once it faded. You gave us all quite a scare, but what a hero you turned out to be," Becky went on, beaming. "Not everyone would dive into a wrecked car like that." I felt my face heat. I did what I had to. "Right place, right time," I murmured, echoing my words to Sam from yesterday. Sam shot me an amused look over her half-eaten stack of pancakes. He's modest. "Truth is, Becky, we lucked out having a trauma surgeon passing through." Becky's eyes lit up. "A surgeon, are you? My. We don't have one of those in Timber Falls anymore." She said it casually, but I didn't miss the speculative glance she exchanged with Sam. I could see where this was heading. I'd lived in small towns during med school rotations. If they sniffed even a chance I could help their doctor shortage, they'd pounce. I cleared my throat and sipped my coffee to buy time. I was an orthopedic surgeon back in Chicago. Orthopedic and trauma trained, from what I gathered," Sam added helpfully. The traitor. She gave me a wink. Becky's smile broadened. Is that so? Well, you know our clinic's been awful understaffed since Dr. Myers retired 6 months ago. Poor Kate, that's our nurse practitioner, has been run ragged, and we only get a rotating doc from Riverton 1 day a week. I held up a hand, both in polite protest and because my head was spinning a bit. Between the strong diner coffee and the sudden sales pitch, I needed a beat. I appreciate the hospitality, truly. I'm between jobs at the moment, taking some time off. Sam chuckled into her coffee. She knew exactly why I was between jobs, though she didn't know the whole saga. I'd only told her I was on a sabbatical road trip, which was true enough. No pressure, hun, Becky said quickly, patting my shoulder. You just landed here after a traumatic ordeal. You take your time, but if you decide to stay a spell, you'd be the answer to our prayers. I opened my mouth to respond, some demurral about only passing through, when the diner door jingled. A man in a tweed jacket and cowboy hat strode in, accompanied by a younger blonde woman carrying a notebook. They made a beeline for our table, guided by Becky's enthusiastic wave. Dr. Carter, hope you're enjoying our town's hospitality, boomed the man. He was in his late 50s, broad-shouldered, with a jovial face. John Thompson, I'm the mayor of this little slice of heaven, and this here is Kate Monroe, our clinic nurse practitioner. I shook the mayor's hand, firm, politician-like, and then Kate's, warm, slightly nervous. Kate looked about my age, maybe a couple years younger, with a kind face and tired eyes that suggested she really had been run ragged. Mayor Thompson settled his hat back on his head after our greeting. I heard about the heroics yesterday. Wanted to thank you personally on behalf of Timber Falls. And also, if you've got a minute to talk about a proposition, I shot a help me look at Sam, who was smirking into her coffee like this was her morning entertainment. Traitor or not, she'd done a lot for me, so I couldn't blame her for finding some amusement. I gestured to the empty side of our booth. By all means, have a seat. What followed was a friendly but pointed recruitment pitch. The mayor explained the dire lack of a physician in the area. Dr. Myers had been their beloved GP for decades until a health scare forced him into retirement. Since then, the town had been relying on an overstretched Kate and weekly visits from a doctor in the nearest city. We're a tight-knit community. We take care of our own, Doc, Mayor Thompson said earnestly. We can't pay a big city's salary, but we can offer free housing, a rent-free clinic space, and a heap of gratitude. Even if you only stayed a few months or a year to help us out until we find someone permanent, we'd make it worth your while. What do you say? I stared into my coffee. A few days ago, I'd have laughed if someone told me I'd be sitting in a Wyoming diner being courted to play country doctor. But now? I stole a glance at Sam, who raised an eyebrow as if to say, opportunity's knocking. And then at Kate, who was watching me with cautious hope. My life was a blank canvas at that moment. No job tying me down, no family obligations. Any family I had was back east and supportive of whatever I wanted. Nothing waiting for me back in Chicago except a finalized divorce and a storage unit of stuff. Could I do it? Could I stay here for a while? My gaze drifted out the window to the quiet, dusty main street of Timber Falls. A mom pushing a stroller waved at the mayor through the diner glass. A pair of old-timers in overalls ambled by, peering curiously at the rental car with Illinois plates. Mine. It was a world apart from the hustle of Chicago General Hospital, a peaceful exile perhaps, where a man could clear his head and do some good at the same time. I realized the mayor and Kate were waiting for an answer. Sam, too, eyes twinkling over her mug. I found myself nodding slowly. How about a trial run? I could stay a few months, see patients, help out where I can. If it works out for both of us, we can talk longer. Mayor Thompson practically whooped, and Kate let out a sigh of visible relief. That's all we ask, the mayor said, pumping my hand again across the syrup-sticky table. We'll get you set up right away, whatever you need. Temporary medical license, housing. Becky's got that covered already. Welcome to Timber Falls, Dr. Carter. It was surreal, but I also felt light. For the first time in months, I had something to look forward to, a place that needed me. I wasn't planning to land here, not by a long shot, but it felt right. Sam nudged me playfully once the mayor left to spread the news, and Kate headed to the clinic to prepare for introducing me. Look at you going native, she teased. I smirked. I haven't agreed to buy a cowboy hat just yet. She laughed, Give it time. And hey, good on you, Dan. This town is a great place to catch your breath, and they sure can use you. There was something in her tone beyond simple friendliness. Perhaps Sam, more than anyone here, understood that I wasn't just a do-gooder doctor on sabbatical. I was a man in recovery too, from wounds less visible than the ones I'd treated on that highway. I offered her a grateful smile. Thanks, Sam, for everything. You barely knew me, but you... She waved me off. Don't get sappy, just doing my job, and maybe helping a friend. A friend? That sounded nice. I realized I hadn't allowed myself that in ages. Our moment was interrupted by Becky zipping over to refill my coffee for the third time, bless her. She was excited. So it looks like you're staying, she chirped. I'll make sure your room is extended long-term, or Bill and I can clear out the cottage out back if you'd prefer more privacy. I chuckled, head spinning at how quickly things moved in a small town. The room is fine for now, thank you. She winked. One step at a time, sweetie. Oh, this is wonderful. Wait till Mabel hears a surgeon's in town. As Becky bustled off, Sam arched an eyebrow. You realize you've just become Timberfall's most eligible bachelor by default, right? New guy, single doctor, hero of yesterday's crash. Half the ladies at church are going to develop mysterious ailments just to meet you. She was clearly teasing, but there was an undercurrent to her words I couldn't quite read. I rubbed the back of my neck, mildly alarmed. If anyone starts bringing casseroles to their checkups, I'll know I'm in trouble. Sam threw her head back and laughed, an easy, melodic sound. I wouldn't worry too much. Folks here respect boundaries. Mostly. Just brace yourself for a lot of homemade pie deliveries. All things considered, I can think of worse fates, I said, trying a smile. It actually came easier than expected. I had arrived broken, but in just 24 hours, this place and these people had given me a direction and a sliver of hope. Life was about to get interesting, and just maybe, a whole lot better. The next few weeks settled into a comfortable rhythm. By day, I saw patients at the Timber Falls Clinic alongside Kate. She was a lifesaver, professionally and personally. Introducing a big city specialist to a rural practice could have been awkward, but Kate's down-to-earth demeanor and wealth of local knowledge bridged the gap. She'd brief me with a smile each morning. Who preferred folksy small talk before getting to the problem? Most of them. Who was hard of hearing in the left ear? Who might try to pay in baked goods if allowed? Looking at you, Mrs. O'Leary, with your excellent banana bread. I treated farmers' back injuries, stubborn ear infections, mystery rashes from poison oak, and one logging accident that required me to MacGyver an external fixator out of hardware store supplies until the patient could be transported to a bigger hospital. It was the most fulfilling work I'd done in years. The town embraced me wholeheartedly. True to Sam's prediction, I received enough pies, cobblers, and casseroles to stock a bakery. Mrs. Garza insisted on doing my laundry at least until I found a nice girl to marry. I didn't dare touch that comment with a 10-foot pole, just nodded and thanked her for the clean shirts. Evenings, I often found myself having dinner with Sam. She'd swing by after her patrol shift with takeout, or I'd grill something behind the motel. We'd share a few beers and talk under the wide Wyoming stars. Despite her playful flirting, it remained innocent for a time. Two new friends unwinding. But as nights passed, those friendly dinners stretched longer. Laughter came easier. The space between us on my little motel porch swing grew smaller. One night in mid-June, a rare thunderstorm rolled through. Power went out across half the town. Sam showed up at my door with a flashlight and a bottle of bourbon. Figured you could use some company in the dark, she quipped. We ended up side by side on the bed, sipping bourbon and swapping stories by flashlight glow. I told her about med school pranks. She told me about the time she arrested the mayor's son for streaking on graduation night. We were both a little buzzed, and when the lightning lit up her face, I noticed how striking she was. Fiery hair loose for once, eyes dancing. So I kissed her. Or she kissed me. I'm honestly not sure. One moment we were howling with laughter. The next my hand was in her hair and her lips were on mine, warm and eager. We didn't make it past second base that night. Power returned sooner than expected, which somewhat killed the mood when the bright lights flickered on and we laughed ourselves silly. But from then on, it was clear. There was something between us. I hadn't been looking for romance, God knows. I figured I was too messed up for it. But Sam didn't treat me like damaged goods. To her, I was just Dan, a guy she liked spending time with and making out with when the opportunity arose. So I let myself enjoy it. We both did. A darkly humorous part of me noted the irony. I'd fled betrayal, sworn off deep entanglements, and here I was, entangled with the town deputy. At least there were no lies here. Sam was straightforward as they came. What you saw was what you got. Did it bother me that she was 10 years younger? Or that we had an unspoken expiration date? She hinted now and then about applying to the FBI, meaning she wouldn't be in Timber Falls forever. Honestly, no. We were two adults having fun, healing in our own ways, no strings until further notice. If a little voice in my head occasionally whispered that this could end in more heartbreak, I shushed it. I wasn't making life plans or promises. I was living in the moment, for once. And the moment felt pretty damn good. That's when Rachel, the ghost of my past, decided to come knocking. It started with a phone call one evening in late August. Sam and I were curled up on my couch watching a Clint Eastwood movie after a long day. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, screen lighting up with an Illinois number I didn't recognize. Sam glanced over. Chicago area code. You gonna get that? I frowned. Only person from Chicago who'd call out of the blue might be Jim with an update on the divorce. I sat up and answered, "Hello?" For a beat, I heard nothing but a faint breath on the line. Then, a tentative, "Dan." My stomach lurched. That voice, soft, familiar, and wholly unwelcome. Rachel. I hadn't heard her voice in nearly 5 months, and I would have been content never to hear it again. Beside me, Sam stiffened slightly, sensing my change in demeanor. I stood up, walking the few paces away. "How did you get this number?" I asked, tone flat and cold as a January morning. "You didn't exactly make it hard," Rachel said, a defensive edge creeping in. "Your mom told me you were in Wyoming. It wasn't tough to figure out which town had a new doctor from Chicago." Damn it, Mom. She'd meant well, no doubt, thinking maybe I'd reconcile or some nonsense. Parents can be too forgiving of their children. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied evenly. My hand holding the phone was trembling, anger starting to bubble. "Dan, please," she rushed out. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I want to see you, to talk. Please." I almost laughed. "Talk? Talk? About what, Rachel? Did you think of a new excuse that might magically make me forget what you did?" On the sofa, Sam quickly muted the TV. She was watching me like a hawk, ready to pounce if needed. There was a muffled sound on the phone. Was she crying? Good, I thought savagely. "I made a horrible mistake," Rachel said in a small voice. "I was lonely and stupid, and I thought—" She swallowed hard. "I thought you'd eventually forgive me. That we could raise her. Raise Evelyn together. You loved me once, and I'm begging you for another chance. Our daughter deserves a family." A red mist of fury descended. How dare she invoke that child, her child, as some kind of bargaining chip? I took a deep breath, struggling for control. When I spoke, my words came out low and measured. "You are delusional if you think I'm ever coming back. I am not your husband, and I have no daughter. You and your lover have a daughter. Now you get to live with that." She started to protest, voice hitching, but I'd had enough. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. Sam had risen silently and was now standing near the door, arms crossed, face stormy. "Was that her?" she asked, even though she clearly knew. "Yeah," I exhaled, raking a hand through my hair. My heart was pounding. What does she want? "Me to come home," I said, unable to keep the disgust from my tone. "To play happy family with her and his baby. She's insane." Sam's eyes flashed. Unbelievable. The gall of that woman. I managed a tight smile. "Right?" She stepped over and put a hand on my arm. "You okay?" I let out a breath. In truth, hearing Rachel's voice had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. Part of me, the wounded, insecure part, had flinched at her begging, whispering maybe I should hear her out. But the saner part, and Sam's presence, anchored me. "I'm fine," I said, covering Sam's hand with mine briefly. I knew she might pull something like this. I just didn't expect it now. Sam nodded, her expression softening. "Look, if she shows up here or harasses you further, just say the word. I'll handle it." The idea of Rachel facing off with Sam, my tough-as-nails deputy, almost made me grin. "I appreciate that." That night, I slept less easily. I half expected to wake to Rachel pounding on my motel door, but morning came quietly. For a week, nothing happened. I almost convinced myself she'd given up after my response. Then, one afternoon at the clinic, I heard raised voices at the reception desk. I stepped out of the exam room, and there she was. Rachel stood in our small waiting area, facing down our teen receptionist, who had clearly tried and failed to shoo her out. She turned at the sound of the door, and our eyes met. 5 months had passed since the hospital, and she looked both familiar and utterly foreign. She'd lost some baby weight. Her figure was closer to the lithe woman I knew. Dressed in jeans and a pastel sweater, she could have been any suburban mom. But her face, there was a desperation in her eyes I'd never seen before. "Dan," she breathed, as if seeing an oasis in the desert. I felt my jaw clench. "You shouldn't be here, Rachel." She took a hesitant step forward. "I had to come. You wouldn't listen on the phone. And that didn't tell you something?" I snapped, keeping my voice low but firm. The receptionist wisely found somewhere else to be. Rachel's lower lip trembled. "We need to talk, please. If not for us, then for—" "Don't you say it," I warned, pointing a finger at her. "Don't you dare try to play the child card with me. You made sure that baby wasn't mine in every way that counts." She winced but pressed on. I know I hurt you beyond words, but 4 years of marriage has to count for something, doesn't it? We were happy, Dan. Or at least I was until—" She caught herself, likely realizing that saying "until you worked too much" wasn't going to win her any points. My anger flared at the implication anyway. "Until you got bored? Is that it? I'm sorry, I was busy building a life for us, silly me. I thought loyalty still mattered." Rachel closed her eyes, tears escaping down her cheeks. "I was lonely," she whispered. "You were never home. I made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't have to end everything. We can go to counseling, try to rebuild." I barked a laugh. "Rebuild? With what, Rachel? The rubble you left? Trust me, that foundation is dust." She stepped closer, dropping her voice. "I love you. I never stopped. Even when I did what I did. Not a day goes by I don't regret it. If I could take it back, I would." I studied her through narrowed eyes. She looked sincere in her remorse, I'd give her that. Once upon a time, it might have moved me. But now all I could think of was how she'd taken advantage of my trust and then had the audacity to expect me to fix it. "This isn't one of your romance novels where the wronged husband has a change of heart because the cheating wife feels really bad," I said coolly. "You blew up our life, Rachel. Actions have consequences. My forgiveness isn't an inalienable right you get to demand." Her expression crumpled. "I'm not just asking forgiveness. I'm asking for our life back. I know it will take time." "You're damn right it would," I cut in. "More time than I have on this earth. You killed us the moment you climbed into someone else's bed." A flicker of anger crossed her face, then some steel beneath the sorrow. "You weren't there," she shot back, then immediately faltered. I mean, I know that's no excuse, but I was alone, Dan. I was scared and overwhelmed, and Brian was— he was just there when you weren't." Ah, finally the name of the sperm donor emerges. "Brian," I repeated. "That the father? He your coworker? Your boss? Some guy from a bar?" Rachel folded her arms protectively. "He was a teacher at the school. It's over with him. He's not even in the picture. His wife found out, and anyway, he left. He doesn't want anything to do with Evelyn." I shook my head in disbelief. What a pair those two made. Cheat together, blow up 2 marriages, then the coward flees and leaves her holding the bag. As angry as I was, I couldn't help a grim smirk at the karmic justice. "Big surprise," I said. "Seems you have a knack for picking winners." She flushed, anger and embarrassment staining her cheeks. "I know I deserve that." "Oh, you deserve a lot more than that," I said, the old hurt seeping into my voice despite myself. "You think it was easy for me to abandon the child I thought was mine until the second she came out of you? You think I wanted any of this?" Rachel opened her mouth, but I was on a roll now, voice rising. "I would have moved heaven and earth for you, for our family. I planned my whole future around it, and you—" My throat tightened. "Damn it, not here, not now." I forced the lump down. "You blew it up. With one betrayal, you took everything I loved and set it on fire." Tears streamed down her face. "I did. And I will never forgive myself, but maybe I can atone. Maybe I can earn back The clinic door jingled open at that moment, and in walked Sam. Of course, she had a knack for timing. Sam took in the scene instantly. Me visibly upset, Rachel crying. Her hand dropped to rest lightly on the grip of her holstered pistol as she approached, voice deceptively light. Afternoon. Doctor, everything all right here? I wiped a hand down my face, trying to gather myself. Deputy Parker, I said formally. This is Rachel, my ex-wife. Rachel stiffened at ex-wife. Our divorce wasn't final quite yet, but it would be soon. She eyed Sam's uniform, then her proprietary stance half in front of me, and I saw something flare in Rachel's eyes. Jealousy, maybe. Good. Sam flashed a tight smile devoid of warmth. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you're causing a disturbance. Rachel bristled, swiping at her cheeks. This is between me and my husband, she said, mustering indignation despite her tears. I stepped forward. Ex, I corrected flatly. Sam placed a gentle but deliberate hand on my shoulder. Actually, from where I'm standing, it's not just between you two anymore. Dr. Carter is part of our community, and you're upsetting him. I'd listen to the deputy and go. Rachel glared at Sam, emotion overriding her placating facade. I don't know who you think you are. I'm the person who will haul you to the county line and put you on the next bus out if Dr. Carter so much as flinches in discomfort, Sam interrupted, her tone pleasant but eyes steely. So how about we all just say our goodbyes? A tense beat. I half expected Rachel to explode. She hated being talked down to. But to my surprise, she deflated. All the fight drained out of her in one long sigh. She looked at me, truly looked, taking in my stony expression, Sam's protective proximity, the utter finality of it all. Rachel nodded slowly, a miserable resignation. I see, she said quietly. You've really moved on, haven't you? I didn't answer. The truth was evident. Wiping her face one last time, Rachel slung her purse strap over her shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not to Sam, not really even to me. More like a general apology to the universe that wouldn't rewind time for her. With that, she turned and walked out of the clinic. The bell jangled after her, and she was gone. Sam relaxed her stance, letting out a breath. Well, that was dramatic. I huffed a humorless laugh, running a hand through my hair. Thanks for the cavalry. She grinned. Anytime. I enjoyed that way more than I should have. Then softer. You okay, Dan? I considered it. The confrontation had been draining, yes, but I felt lighter now that it was done. I'd said my piece, stood my ground, and seeing Rachel face to face had one big effect. I realized I didn't love her anymore. I felt sorry for her, even a little angry still, but the love? It had died the day our marriage did. I'm all right, I finally answered, meeting Sam's concerned gaze, and I meant it. Sam nodded. Good. So, dinner at my place later? I think you've earned a stiff drink and some non-dramatic company. I managed a genuine smile. Sounds perfect. That night, Rachel left Timber Falls for good, encouraged by the motel's sudden closure due to a water line break, coordinated by the mayor, Sam, and Becky, who all decided to hasten her departure. I heard later from Jim that she returned to Chicago and didn't contest any divorce terms. As promised, I walked away clean. She ended up with the modest house and the baby. I ended up free. The score was settled, and I, for one, was ready to close the book on Madeline Rachel Carter and everything that came with her. Life moved on. Autumn painted the Rockies gold and orange. Sam and I enjoyed our remaining time together, but as the leaves fell, so did the inevitability that she'd be leaving. True to her ambition, she got the call. Quantico wanted her in the next FBI training class come October. We had the talk. Over a quiet picnic by the river, Sam admitted she wasn't the long-distance relationship type. I admitted I wasn't sure I was ready for anything too serious anyway. So we parted the way mature adults do, with a hug, a few tears, hers, mine, doesn't matter, and promises to keep in touch, which, surprisingly, we actually have. When she drove away toward her next chapter, I stood on Main Street and gave a little salute to her taillights. She'd come into my life like a firecracker, full of crackling energy and bright light. And just as quickly, she was gone. I was grateful truly for what we'd shared. She helped mend a part of me, gave me back confidence and laughter. That was enough. I wasn't lonely for long anyway. In a town like this, one ends up social whether one wants to or not. And I found myself wanting to, especially in the company of one particular person, Kate. From the beginning, Kate Monroe had been steadfast, my rock at the clinic. Smart, compassionate, and with a quiet wit that snuck up and delighted you. She was also a single mom to the sweetest 4-year-old girl, Lily, who often hung around the clinic after preschool. Lily took a shine to me, maybe because I knew the secret of making tongue depressor puppets. Over time, casual lunches with Kate at the diner turned into long conversations. Weekend hikes in the foothills often included her and Lily tagging along, then maybe coming by my place after for hot cocoa. It was all very wholesome, gradual, and natural. One chilly December evening, after we'd all attended the town's tree lighting ceremony, I found myself at Kate's front door, Lily perched on my shoulders fast asleep, the sugar crash from hot cocoa and candy canes finally hitting. Kate was fumbling for her keys, and I remember saying softly, "Got a sleeping delivery here. Where do you want her?" "Second door on the left," Kate whispered, smiling. I carried Lily inside and gently put her to bed, tucking the covers under her chin. She murmured, half awake, "Night-night, Dr. Dan," and my heart just about melted into a puddle right there on the rug. When I came out to the living room, Kate was waiting, 2 mugs of tea on the coffee table and a shy, hopeful look in her eyes. We sat, talked quietly, about our childhoods, our hopes for the new year. There was a pause, a charged hush between us. She leaned in first, pressing a tentative kiss to my cheek. I turned my head, catching her lips with mine in a real kiss. It was sweet, slow, and it felt like home. That was the start of everything. Kate and I became nearly inseparable. By spring, I was helping Lily learn to ride a bike and patching up her scraped knees after inevitable tumbles. By summer, Kate had moved from friend to girlfriend to something much deeper. When the divorce papers arrived in the mail, final at last, I showed Kate. She read them, then simply said, "Congratulations, you're a free man," and kissed me like it was the first day of a new life. Because it was. And when I carefully, haltingly told her the full story of what brought me to Timber Falls, every painful detail, she listened, eyes glistening. And when I was done, she took my hand and said, "Their loss. 100%. Then she pulled me into a hug that felt like forgiveness I hadn't even known I still needed. I stayed in Timber Falls. The town petitioned the state to make my position permanent. They practically threw a party when I agreed to sign a multi-year contract. Was it less money than I used to make? Sure. Did I care? Not one bit. I was happier patching up neighbors and delivering the occasional baby in an emergency. That happened once, on a snowed-in highway, and I'll be a legend for it until I retire, than I ever was performing back-to-back surgeries in a sterile big city. Or, 2 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Turns out, I hadn't lost everything. I just cleared the deck for something better. Epilogue. 2 years later. Dan. Aaron Daniel Carter. It's time. I nearly dropped the spatula in the frying pan. Kate's voice, sharp with excitement, rang from the living room. It was a chilly Saturday morning in January. I'd been making blueberry pancakes for Lily when my very pregnant wife, yes, wife, we'd made it official last summer under the cottonwoods in her parents' backyard, announced the moment had arrived. I found Kate standing by the couch, one hand on her lower belly, breathing carefully. A puddle of fluid glistened on the hardwood at her feet. Showtime. My heart kicked into high gear, but I was oddly calm as I sprang into action. We'd prepared meticulously for this day. Hospital bag by the door? Check. Infant car seat installed? Check. Lily at the ready with her own little backpack to go to Grandma's? Check. Though she was currently gaping at her mom with big, excited eyes. "Mom's gonna have the baby," Lily squealed, bouncing on her toes. "Yes, she is," I grinned, sweeping Lily into a quick hug. "You ready to be the best big sister ever?" "I was born ready," she declared solemnly, making Kate and me laugh despite the tension. Within minutes, our little convoy was on the move. My parents, who had relocated to Timber Falls last year, couldn't resist the quieter life near their son, apparently, pulled up to take Lily to their house as planned. Kate and I hopped into our car. I gave her hand a reassuring squeeze as she breathed through another contraction. "You doing okay, sweetheart?" She blew out a breath and flashed me a determined smile. "I'm great. Let's go meet our girl." Our girl. Just hearing that made my chest tight with emotion. The drive to Riverton Hospital took 30 minutes, but it felt like no time. Kate's contractions were strong but manageable, coming every 5 minutes by the time I pulled into the hospital's maternity entrance. The local sheriff, my old friend and one-time fling Sam, who happened to be visiting her folks this week, had arranged a lights and siren escort for us as a fun surprise, so we arrived in grand, silly style. The small-town perks never end. 9 exhausting but miraculous hours later, our daughter made her grand entrance into the world. At 6:14 p.m., little Annabelle Grace Carter let out her first wail, announcing to everyone present that she had arrived. Tears blurred my vision as I cut the cord. Steady hands, but don't ask about the tears on my cheeks. They were unapologetically flowing. The nurse placed that tiny warm bundle against Kate's chest, and I watched my wife's face transform with awe and love. In that moment, I swore there was no more beautiful sight on earth. Annabelle was perfect. Is perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a dusting of brown hair, whereas Lily had been blonde like her mom. She quieted the instant she heard my voice murmuring soft assurances while Kate kissed her downy head. My parents arrived a bit later with Lily in tow. Lily approached the hospital bed cautiously, eyes huge with wonder at the baby sister we'd all been talking about for months. "Can I hold her?" she whispered to me. "As soon as Mommy says it's okay," I whispered back. Kate, glowing with maternal pride and a healthy dose of exhaustion, gently transferred Annabelle into Lily's waiting arms while I supported Lily's small frame. It was quite the picture. Our 6-year-old cradling her newborn sister, her expression a mix of responsibility and pure joy. "Hi, baby," Lily cooed with the confidence of a practiced big sister. "I'm Lily, and I'm going to teach you everything." We laughed softly. My mom sniffled happy tears into my dad's shoulder as they hovered nearby. I slipped an arm around Kate's shoulders and she leaned into me. I pressed a kiss to her temple, whispering, "Thank you for this, for everything." Her hand found mine and squeezed. "We did this together," she replied, eyes shining. Annabelle let out a tiny sigh and opened one curious eye at us as if to say, "I'm here too, you know." We all chuckled, and Lily proudly declared, "I think she likes us. I think so too." Kate, well, isn't this a picture? My husband, yes, husband, rocking our newborn daughter to sleep by the window, humming a lullaby in that slightly off-key way of his. My 6-year-old perched at his feet, helping by gently stroking the baby's tiny foot. The late afternoon sun glowing around them like a halo. If I wasn't so blissed out, I'd probably cry at how sweet it is. But I'm content to just smile and commit this scene to memory. Because this is my family. Our family. I glance beside me at my mother-in-law, though she insists I just call her Mom now, who's dozing in the armchair, tuckered out from all the excitement. Grandpa took Lily to the cafeteria for ice cream earlier, a reward for being so patient. Life as it stands in this moment is as close to perfect as it gets. I've learned some lessons in my 32 years. Life rarely goes according to plan. People will surprise you, sometimes hurt you, sometimes heal you. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, fate gives you a chance to turn betrayal into blessing. I had all but given up on finding a good man after my ex-husband left me and Lily. But then came Dan, wounded, yes, wary too, but oh so good to his core. He didn't just mend my faith in love, he made it stronger than ever. Watching him step into the role of father to Lily, without hesitation, with nothing but love, showed me exactly the kind of man he is, the kind I intend to hold on to for the rest of my days. And now we have Annabelle, this tiny new person who has all of us utterly enchanted. When Dan first held her, I thought my heart might burst from the tenderness on his face. The same tenderness I see right now as he carefully transfers our sleeping bundle back into my arms. "Your turn to rest," he whispers to me, brushing a kiss on my forehead as he settles the baby against my breast. I marvel at Annabelle's little yawn, her rosebud lips smacking. I'm head over heels in love with her already. With all of them. I catch Dan's hand as he starts to step away, and I tug him gently back. "Stay," I murmur, patting the narrow space on the hospital bed beside me. He grins and maneuvers his tall frame to sit without disturbing either me or the baby. Lily immediately climbs up too, nestling on Dan's lap and peering at her sister. We must look like quite the sight, but I don't care one bit. Let the whole world see how happy we are. I lean my head against Dan's shoulder. "We did all right, huh, doctor?" He kisses the top of my head. We did amazing, Mama. Mama. I love that he calls me that. I love everything about him, really. Sometimes I think about her. His ex, Rachel? Hard not to, considering the drama she stirred even after he left her. I don't harbor ill will exactly. I don't have the energy to spare. Any negativity is energy I'd rather spend on my family. But I'll say this, she was a fool of epic proportions. She had this incredible man's devotion and threw it away. She hurt him so deeply I wasn't sure he'd ever open up fully again. But he did. With me, with Lily, and now with Annabelle. I stroke my husband's arm, feeling the solid warmth of him, and I silently thank whatever powers that be for bringing him through the fire to my door. If Rachel could see us now, well, I almost wish she could, just so she'd know that Daniel got the happy ending he deserved, without her. And perhaps so she'd know that while I'm a kind person, I'm not one to tolerate any nonsense that threatens my family. I may be all gentle smiles right now, but make no mistake, I'd bear claws if anyone tried to harm a hair on these three loves of mine. But enough about the past. The future is what matters, and ours looks bright. Dan presses another kiss to my temple, and I tilt my face up to meet his lips properly. Lily makes a faux gagging noise. Ew, Dad's kissing Mom again. We laugh softly. None of us want to wake the baby, and Dan tickles Lily in retaliation. She dissolves into quiet giggles, and I shoot them both a mock reproving look, cradling Annabelle closer. I've never felt so complete. We're not wealthy by any means. We're not some flashy power couple. But our home is filled with laughter and love and trust, real trust, the kind you rebuild, with someone brick by brick until it's stronger than what came before. Dan closes his eyes and rests his head against mine. I can feel the rise and fall of his breathing, steady, content. This man is my rock, and I am his. We've got each other's backs, no matter what life throws. Let the world throw its worst. Heartbreak, loss, betrayal. We'll get through it standing side by side, hand in hand. Because that's what family does. That's what we do. Annabelle gives a tiny hiccup in her sleep, and all three of us immediately glance at her. Yep, we're officially baby whipped. She's okay, I whisper. Lily reaches over and oh so carefully pats the baby's blanketed tummy. We're here, Belle, she whispers. She insisted from day one that Annabelle needed a nickname. Yes, little one, we're here. All of us, your big sister, your mom, your dad, your forever family. I feel a warm tear slip down my cheek and I let it fall. It's joy, it's gratitude, it's everything. I look up at Dan and he meets my gaze with such adoration that I know he's feeling it too. Home. This is home. And nothing and no one is ever going to break it apart. Not on my watch. So to those ghosts of the past who might ever dare darken our doorstep, consider this mama bear on permanent guard duty. We've been through our storms and come out the other side stronger and shining. This is our happily ever after. We earned it the hard way. And by God, we're going to live it to the fullest. Oh, and Deputy Samantha Parker? Don't think I didn't notice you batting your eyelashes at my husband at last year's Christmas party. You best stick to winking at the FBI boys, honey, because this small-town wife and mother doesn't tolerate anyone making eyes at her man. Consider that a friendly warning. I smile to myself, nuzzling Annabelle and breathing in that sweet newborn scent as Dan and Lily start plotting what bedtime story to tell tonight. My heart is so full it could burst. Betrayal may have broken us once upon a time, but love built us back up, stronger, unshakable. And this, right here, right now, is the ultimate revenge. A life of genuine happiness that we won in the end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.